Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best tech leaders in the world to help you scale your SaaS business from 2 million ARR to 100 million ARR. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Javier Fondevila, CEO at Audit. Javi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Mike.
And yeah, to be great to get to know more about yourself and how did you end starting up Audit?
Sure. So I'll try to be brief because it can be a super long story, but long story short, so I consider myself a native entrepreneur. So I actually never had a proper job. So I founded my first company when I was 20. Then on the last stage of this company was when I started realizing about the whole idea, no? Because I was so frustrated about the softwares that I could use to run my business. I was young, so maybe I was looking for something different than the mainstream market, no? So then I was using like multiple applications. Most of them weren't in the cloud. This is back 5 years ago, no, more or less. So everything has evolved a lot. But at that time, it was very, very hard to find something beautiful, easy to use that really, connect all my business in one place. So that's when I started thinking about this idea, like in parallel a little bit. And until I found my partner, Bernat, I couldn't really start it, no? I don't have an engineering background. Actually, everything related to coding was something super new until I started Hold It. So I met my co-founder Bernat in Facebook. We were these ghost friends that never met, or I think we never met and we barely knew each other who we are, no? He posted Hold It. He did the first version of Hold It for himself. He was also having a couple other small projects and he did it for himself to be able to issue invoices. It was a really basic product, but looking super good. So he posted that on Facebook. I saw it, I love it. And I wrote him like, hey, look, it seems that you have the skills to complement my skills, and both together we can do something great, no? So we met at a Starbucks. It's everything super commercial, no? So from Facebook
to Starbucks.
And suddenly we are here. I don't know. Everything happened so fast, no? We were super engaged about the idea. We both realized that it was an amazing project. Even an ERP or an accounting software maybe it's not sexy, no, when you think about it, no. But we had a completely different vision, no. So we wanted to create a business operating system, so more like the operating system like you have in your iPhone, which has the basics and connects all your data, but you can run other applications. You can integrate it with everything you need, no. That was our vision, to have an all-in-one software for SMEs. That it's beautiful, easy to use, and with the latest technology, no? So of course, API first, that you can easily integrate with any other software that you're using, and you can basically automate everything that is not adding value in your work, no? So that's the idea we had, and this is what we're developing.
That's quite amazing, and I imagine as all the best ideas that I'm seeing nowadays, for instance, if we think about Zoom, it's that we are using now to record this podcast. So it's a web conferencing solution. So we would say that it's very difficult to disrupt this industry and look at what Zoom did. So I would say that in terms of ERP or CRM spaces, it would be also very difficult to disrupt. But as you say, there is a need in the market. And I loved this kind of ideas that I would say common sense would say, oh, it seems a red ocean. So how do you comment on investors or on other people, other stakeholders that would say, this seems very hard to me in terms of going to this industry, the ERP industry?
No, you're completely right. And it's a really normal thought, no? Yeah. This is a red ocean. It's true. It's not a blue ocean, and it has its pros and its cons. Right. So for me, a red ocean, it's a validated market, no? So you don't need to validate that you can make money out of it. So you can make money out of it. Actually, there's a lot of people making money out of it. But it's going to be much more hard to compete because there's competitors in the market. But at the same time, you are growing yourself competing. So this is not something new. If you ever need to compete, your whole organization grew competing, no? So you're ready to compete. And this is also something I think it's positive, because when you grow in a blue ocean, if suddenly you need to learn to compete with others and you are too big, maybe it is very hard to change the mindset and the culture, no? So I think red ocean, blue ocean, both has pros and cons, but you can make it in both sides, no?
Absolutely.
It's true that for us it was very hard to raise the first dollar.
Okay.
It was very difficult because of this reason. Everyone was saying, look, there's a lot of players here, it's a tough industry, you're not going to make it. But if you believe in what you're doing and you think you can do something better, it actually happens. And I've seen the most successful companies out there are not the first company in the space. Yeah. Most of them are just something that has been done for years, but done in a different way, in a better way, or in a way that fits better the current moment. Corporations are very slow, and not because they are bad, it's just because moving an elephant is very hard, no? Yeah, so we need to use the time when we are a small organization to be fast and to have the proper culture to find opportunities, because when you become too big, you're going to be probably the same as the big corporations you were competing against in the early days.
Absolutely. And in terms of growth stage, Javi, in terms of head count, if you can disclose intervals of ARR, it doesn't need to be exact, of course. Yeah. So head count. So in what stage of growth from this to 2 million to 100 million, where are you now with Hold It?
So we started the company back in 2016. We were only 3 people this year. We raised our first money, and from then to today, we grew up the team up to 58 people. We're now in the road of going from 2 million ARR to 5 million ARR. So we're in this way. We've raised 7.5 million until now, but we consider ourselves a very capital efficient company. Of course, I mean, nothing compared to a bootstrapped company probably, but being a VC-backed company, we try to use the money very smart and not get too crazy because we have money when we just raise, no? Because of course you use the money to generate revenue.
Absolutely. Very good points. And we start with your thoughts on the 222 double free rule. So this rule is kind of, we can identify this rule among some of the world-class SaaS companies, some of the best SaaS companies in the world. So typically after 2 million, they are able to triple, 2 to 6, 6 to 18, and then double from 18 to 36, 36 to 72, and 72 to 144, which means 100 million plus, getting there from 2 to 100 million in 5 years. Of course, this is really outliers and really outliers. So what do you think about those kind of rules, and what do you think this kind of growth? Would you like to be so aggressive, less aggressive? It depends on the industry, it depends on your company. What's your view on those kind of aggressive growth?
Yeah, I think everything you said. So first, I really love frameworks. I think they are very useful to at least give you some benchmark of what you can do. And then you can decide if you want to follow it or not, or you're going to do it differently, or maybe this framework applies different to your organization because of your target customer, or because of, I mean, the way you want to grow it, no? So first, I'm a big fan of frameworks, and I think this framework helps a lot on defining the road of becoming an 100 million ARR company, which is, I think, the big milestone that we all want to reach. No, of course, it's a very difficult goal, and we tend to only watch the top 10 companies in the world and compare ourselves with them. And I mean. Right. And this can become super stressful, and it doesn't mean if you're not following this, you cannot be a successful company, no? So there are different ways of reaching success, and maybe even a bigger success than others who were faster. We're actually trying to follow something similar. So we're not obsessed about this framework, about triple, triple, double, no. But yeah, it's true that we're trying to follow it. We consider our company a PLG. So I don't know for those who are not familiar with product-led growth companies, but it's basically to try to remove everything that it doesn't scale through the product, no? So instead of adding a bunch of salespeople, so we try that the product sells itself. Instead of having a lot of the CS team, CS agents to solve jobs, we try to improve the product so we can scale it faster and we can become more efficient in the future. For PLG companies, for example, as far as I know, in the early days, it's maybe harder to grow that fast because you are setting up the whole product that is going to deliver higher growth rates in the latest stage. No, so in our case, we were able to triple every year until now. So we are happy with this, and it's actually part of our goals. We are going to try to do this, but again, not super obsessed about the framework, but using it as a benchmark.
Got it. Cool. And we always discuss 3 critical ingredients to scale on the show. First one is radical focus. Second one is world-class leadership. And third one is culture of execution, sorry. And starting with the first one, radical focus, we all know that after raising Series A or after raising Series B, and sometimes surprisingly, even after raising Series C, we tend to open too many avenues with the pressure of growth, with the pressure of what we have been just discussing. And there is nothing more difficult to scale than adding layers of complexity, as you were saying. And that's what we are trying to avoid with a product-led company, is to decrease the complexity and make it much more scalable. So how do you resist to the temptation to open too many geos? I know that in terms of segments, you are to small, medium businesses, but at the same time, there are multiple verticals that you can serve. So how do you bring focus after raising this A round so you don't go everywhere and try to be everything to everyone?
So it's very difficult. I don't have the secret formula, but I think as a founder in our DNA, we are passionate about creating and innovating now. So it's easy to lose focus because you have money and you can start developing more projects that fulfill what makes you happy. No, but at the same time, complexity is very dangerous, not only on your product, but on the whole organization. No, so adding one more market, it's adding complexity on operations, on accounting, on finance. So in my case, what I'm trying to do is to avoid the temptation of releasing more products or more verticals or more geos, and focusing on satisfying or fulfilling myself with innovating and creating through the right things, which is create a data-driven company. No, so if we ever do something, it's because we validated with data that it makes sense. Also, the experiments mindset. No, so always try to do small little things that allows us to take decisions, because if not, you can get lost. No, and forget a little bit about driving the company with gut and mix gut with data with experiments. No. So again, no, I don't have a secret formula, but I try to fulfill this energy, you know, this innovation spirit in different areas, no, which is putting all my team together, hiring the best talent, maintaining the culture, innovating inside the organization, and focusing a lot in reducing complexity. Instead of adding more layers of complexity, because it's very, very easy to add complexity. You don't even see it coming, and it's actually happening every day.
Very good points. And for the audience and the listeners out there, be careful with adding complexity. As Javi is saying, everyone can complicate things. Very few people can simplify things, and this would be very helpful along the way. So not only to get to 5, but even to 10, 20, 50, 100 million, the temptation will always be there, especially when we are doing well. So where we become overconfident. So when we are struggling, it's very easy to become humble and to start saying, look, we need to cut something. But when it is going very well, and hopefully that's what we want things to get, it's much easier to start saying yes, yes, and yes to things that we should say no. There is just a last point on this topic. There is nowadays a lot of discussion, especially because of the god of SaaS, Jason Lemkin, about net revenue retention. And Jason was commenting that Slack has net revenue retention of 140%, Twilio at 150%. So for the audience who is not familiar with net revenue retention, it shows how much we are growing from our current customer base without adding new customers. And 140%, it means that we are growing 40% in terms of revenue just via our customer base. So if we want to double, it means that we need to acquire 60% of revenue, and we are growing through 40% of the customer base. So what's your take on growth via customer base or via retention or expansion instead of acquisition?
I really love it, and it's not only because it's super sustainable as a business, no? Why everyone is so focused today on net MRR retention? It's just because the effort that the company needs to do to keep growing, it's much more, it's lower, of course, yeah. And you don't need to be paying all those customers that you're losing, no? Because if your net MRR retention is negative, it's under the 100%, it means that every year you're going to be paying money to just get the same ARR that you got last year, no? So basically, yeah. to not decrease the size of the revenue. So of course this is super good in terms of from a revenue perspective, but also I think it's very good because it drives the company around the existing customer and not the new customer. And we've seen a lot of companies thinking too much about the new customers, but not that much about the existing customers. And I think this is completely wrong, because an existing customer is actually someone who already bought your product, who already give you the trust, who's already using your product. So it's much more easy to get revenue from this customer than from a new one, no? So if you focus on this metric, you start releasing strategies that are designed to satisfy the current customer, and then this has a lot of positive consequences. So you'll probably see how your NPS is going to grow because you're actually thinking about the current customer. So current customers are going to be happier and happier, and you're going also to see that everything works much more efficient because those customers are going to be that happy that virality is going to start working better. No? So I think by only focusing on one metric, we can get a lot of positive outputs, and more philosophy. It's that if we want to succeed in the future, we need to be customer centric, and customer centric doesn't mean thinking about the new customer. It means thinking about the current customer. No?
Yeah, and a very good point that you also cover this. Starting solving this problem with your base of clients where it is a small customer base. So typically what we hear again and again, people saying, look, we don't have enough customers to focus on retention and expansion. We need to focus on acquisition. So what we are doing is, again, as the point that we were discussing, increasing the complexity of the business. So because now instead of having 10 Anapi customers, we might have 100 Anapi customers, and making it more difficult to go to the next milestone. Jumping to the ingredient number 2, world-class leadership. This is all about having the right people on the right seats. We typically discuss that from 2 to 100 million, we'll need to have 7 different companies, 7 different CEOs, 7 different leadership teams, 7 different middle management teams, and 7 different individual contributors teams. You are maybe on your 2nd or 3rd company at this stage with Oldeds. So what have been some of the most difficult positions to you to hire for, I believe, your first version of your leadership team post Series A?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, the also super important, no? And the team, we hear a lot about how important is the team, and it's very easy to underestimate how important it is actually, and especially when you're a founder, that you can do multiple stuff. You've learned how to wear multiple hats, and it's difficult to understand this message, but it's actually more important than what people is saying, no? And you need to live it to really understand it. And also, I really like to think about the team on the company as a sports team. I think it's very similar, and we really like to operate in the same way. So depending on the league you're playing, you're going to need different team players, no? And this is going to be changing when the team is changing leagues, and when you get into the Champions League, probably you're going to need a completely different team. Some of these people are going to be able to grow with the company, but just a few. And this is actually normal, and I like to send a message to not frustrate people, or it's just really rare that you can go from 1 million to 100 million company and grow with the company. It's very, very difficult, no? So for us, it's always been trying to understand very good what's the team we want for the next 12 to 24 months, and just focus on this. Actually, we were a bit late. So that's why I said that even this, it's hiring, it's very tough. It takes a lot of time, energy, it's super time consuming. So it's very easy to, postpone these decisions, and especially senior hires, because you're going to delegate a lot of important decisions, no? So as a founder, this is your baby, and it's hard to take this decision and really to move on this. For us, it took us 2 years to really start building a leadership team. Actually, last year was the first year we hired our first VP, who was Felipe, VP of Finance. Then we hired Adelina, who's our VP of Growth. And for us, under our experience, and I think as we can see the market growth, it's probably the hardest position to fulfill in Europe for SaaS SME companies, because it's very new. It's a new industry, so we don't have that many people who has grown a company from 1 to 10 to 10 to 50, from 50 to 100. So there's just a few companies that has done this already in Europe. So either you get these people. In our case, we hired Adelina. She was a former VP of marketing at Typeform. I guess it's the only company in Spain focused on SMEs, a SaaS company, who did already this journey, no? So actually we were super lucky on fitting, the needs we had with maybe the only person that was having this requirements, no? So hiring leadership positions is always super difficult, depending on the moment and on your region. Some areas can be much harder just because of there's not that much talent in the market. And for us was growth. We're now also on the process of hiring a VP of engineering. I think in Europe, growth and product are the areas where we have less experienced people, just because we don't have that many successful companies, no? And also in the SaaS space. So if we think about e-commerce, we'll probably have more experienced people because of Privalia in Spain, because of Zalando in Germany, no? So it depends a lot in the industry, but specifically in the SaaS industry, I think growth and product are the hardest positions to fulfill in a really senior level.
This is a very good point, and I would say this is also related with the first mindset shift. So now you need to be able to hold back and go to the position of business architect and the leader of the team, and assure execution through the team instead of through our own action. And typically, people who get to this stage, they are world-class performers. They are very creative, as you said in the beginning, and they find a way of getting things done. But at a certain moment, it is not scalable at all. We need to find those super VPs who can help us to grow the company for the next level, super align it with what is the vision and helping us to get there. And just getting it right, one VP of 5 and sometimes 2 or 3, it's already a huge success, and it deserves all the investment in the world in terms of time allocation. And I believe that we just keep seeing very few time of the agenda of the CEO allocated to building the team, and too many time on getting things done via his own or her own ends, right?
Correct. I know. And two things. It's important to do it at the right time because, of course, a VP of growth, for example, that needs to manage a 30 or 50 people team, it's completely different than a VP or a leadership, a person who can lead a team of 5, no? And if you hire this person too early, you might not get the proper results, no? But if you do it at the right time, the output, the experience, it's completely amazing. I mean, it's one of the best things that ever happened to us, not to really start having these senior people who are in charge of some areas that they are better than us in these areas and you start seeing that something you were doing by yourself, it's now just running. And you're amazed about the things that they're doing, and it's a super good feeling seeing that something is happening without you and that you really like what's happening, no? Right. It's just the best feeling ever.
Amazing. And we move to the third and final ingredient, which is a culture of execution. So if it is crystal clear what we need to achieve, and if we are focused, if we have the right team in place to get things done, now it's all about getting things done and having this ingrained in the culture, having the weeklies, the monthlies, the dailies, the quarterlies, the annuals, the one-on-ones, the town halls, all those rhythms. What are some of the rhythms that are important to you to have everyone on the same page and that are important for you to inspire execution across your team?
So everything starts from culture, actually. And culture is this other thing that when we started the company, we were hearing a lot about how important is the culture. And when you're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, sounds like a little bit of bullshit. Sorry for the word, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
We give the importance that it has. But when you start growing and suddenly there's people that you rarely speak with, you realize how important is the culture, and it's actually the fact for success in the long term. So in our case, we realized this when we overpassed I think 25 people, more or less. We started seeing how things are not happening in the same room, so it's not that easy to get everyone on the same page. So suddenly there's people that is not in the same page, that doesn't understand what we're doing, and maybe they're driving in a different direction. At that time is when we saw how important is the culture, and we started doing things among the culture. And actually it's one of the key things I'm doing in my daily basis. Be sure that we maintain the culture and we have everyone driving on the same direction. And everything happens from the first step, which is hiring. So we make sure first we created our culture all together. So we were 20 or 25, and we defined our corporate values, the way we work, the way we like to collaborate, and how we want to work together. Once we defined this, was much more easy to identify the right people for the team. So for example, me or my co-founder Bernard, we participate in every single interview or hire we do to make sure there's a cultural fit, and we are super obsessed about making sure that this person fits on the way we work and how we work. So when this person lands into our company, we are sure it's going to work good because it fits the way we do things, no? Right. So also repeating this we have a team meeting every Friday where we try to align everyone. So we explain, not to make it too long, because if not, it's so boring, no? But maximum half an hour where we sit down everyone together, and we try to pick up different topics every Friday. But the goal of this meeting is just to put everyone on the same page. If we had something that was very relevant this week, so we explain it and everyone knows what's going on more or less. And also we are we use this Friday meeting to make sure everyone is on the same page with the culture, no? and we try to relate everything we do to our corporate values, no, and to showcase. We promote people because of our corporate values. So it might be a little bit repetitive, and for some people maybe they think, oh, this is I mean, every Friday we're like almost singing our corporate values, but
right.
In the end, it's the only way that people remember the corporate values, just by repeating it like 1,000 times and being super clear the way we work. And maybe not everyone fits. I'm sure not everyone fits here, but we're not aiming to fit everyone. We're just aiming to fit the people that fits with the other people in the team.
And at least everyone knows what are the rules of the game. And this also happens. I see this a lot of times. People are not aware of the rules of the VC game, and they are getting in a buzz, and they don't understand the buzz, and then they think that people are crazy about aiming to double or triple the company every single year. It's huge pressure. So if you feel that change is not your thing, don't try to scale up, because it really changes a lot. So there are other places to work that are much better for you if you want a much more stable. On the other side, if you want to grow very, very quickly as a human being and as a professional, it is one of the best places to work in the world. Absolutely. And we got to the final and our favorite question of the show, which is, if you would have the opportunity to meet Javi 4 years ago before starting audits, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
Very difficult question. So only one is hard to pick. I think, of course, I've done a lot of things wrong. And maybe I'm going to be too drastic or very different on my response, but I wouldn't give me any advice. Because in the end, I think everything I've done brought me to where I am. And actually I had one company. I mean, I introduced this in the beginning. I closed this company. So I raised it from 80 people, 14 stores around the country, 5 million in revenue. And then I had to take the decision of closing it. And I made this question to myself that time, what I did wrong. And in the end, I thought, look, every time we take decisions, we play with the cards we have in this moment. No, we have X information, and with these cards, we try to play it our best hand. No, like in poker. And so I think trying to give different information to the past, it's going to change everything, because you don't really know why you're doing this. No, so and mistakes sometimes are very important, because you learn a way more from a mistake than from a success. Because a success, it's very easy to accept, and it doesn't really burn in your blood. But when you're wrong on something, when you fail, you really get this message into you. No, it's something that you will never forget. No, so I think everything we do takes us where we are, and it's a necessary road. No, so of course I would tell myself a lot of things to be better and faster and not make mistakes, but I think mistakes are necessary. So I would maybe send me the number of the Euromillionaires or something like this, and about any other professional advice.
Very good point. Javi, congrats on the journey so far. It's very inspiring, and thank you so much for making the time to share your experience with the community.
Thanks for having me, Mike, and keep scaling.
That's awesome. And to our community, thanks for being there. And we keep bringing you the best of the best, so you can leverage their lessons and avoid their mistakes on your journey from 2 million ARR to 100 million ARR. See you soon. And as Javi was saying, keep scaling.